y'all. Welcome back to Booze, Books, and Boundaries, the podcast where we sip something good, spill what's real, and protect our peace because minding your business matters. This episode is brought to you by Bounty&Bliss, where self-care is more than routine. It's a return to yourself. Head over to bountyandbliss.com to find wellness essentials, journals, and tools that keep you grounded in this messy ass world. And let me be clear before we get started, I am not a licensed professional or a therapist. I am just blessed with the wisdom from the ancestors, life experience, and some good old-fashioned common damn sense. So you take what resonates with you and then you leave the rest behind. All right, since it is spooky season, I want to switch it up and tap into a different kind of horror today. Not the kind with ghosts and goblins and ghouls, but the kind that lives in real life. The fear of disappearing to make other people comfortable. That's the energy behind this week's book, The Jackal by Erin E. Adams. And before we get into it, you know we got to start with a drink that fits the vibe. So originally, this cocktail was called The Vanishing Point. It's supposed to be dark, moody, and layered. But y'all, yeah, when I took that first sip, it tasted like Robitussin. So in true fashion, I am just going to rename this bad medicine, or I'm going to call it like Chris Rock said, put some tussin on it, or I'm going to be like sipping on some scissor, something. I'll probably call it something different each time I try it. But sometimes life hands you lemons and sometimes they hand you cough syrup. So either way, I'm going to drink this drink. We're going to sip it. We're going to laugh and we're going to just keep it moving, because sometimes that's the real message, right? Like, healing does not always taste good, but it still does what it's supposed to do. So, all right, here's what's in bad medicine. And I say I'm just going to go with it. Number one, because I'm not wasting alcohol. And number two, because I want to see if it, like, as it wears on, if it's going to switch it up, or is it going to continue to taste like Robitussin. So if not, we just going to put some tussin on it. But here's what's in bad medicine. And this one that I made, it had 2 ounces of blackberry Crown Royal, a half an ounce of amaretto, which I think I doubled up, and because I had a little corner left in the bottle, so I just kind of poured heavy with what I had left. I just was trying to finish the bottle out, so that's what I ended up doing. So an ounce of amaretto, and then an ounce of fresh lemon juice or lime juice. And then I had some cranberry bitters that I bought because it looked interesting, and so I said I'm gonna try that. But I think that's what made it taste like tussin. So going forward, I would say mix the blackberry Crown Royal, the amaretto, and the lemon juice, and I would leave the bitters behind. So I originally named it The Vanishing Point as a reminder that even when life tries to fade us into the background, we can always return to ourselves. So the sweet, the sour, the bitter, they all kind of coexist together. Just like all the parts of us, we learn to reclaim instead of hide. So here's to showing up whole in full color with a little bit of tussin if you need it. Yeah, man. Yeah, it still tastes like cough syrup. All right, before we get into the book, let's pour a little liquid courage and talk about what's really been going on these past couple weeks. So, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. It has been a lot. I have been dealing with some serious bouts of anxiety. For the past week or so, I have not been able to sit down and work like I want to or need to, because life has just been lifing in every possible way. So I'm still in the process of moving back into my house, battling with the insurance, and trying to come to terms with what my next steps are and the possibility of selling my home and what that means for me moving forward. And on top of that, my uncle passed away. And so last week was his homegoing ceremony. And that meant being present for my family members, reconnecting with my family, and just holding space for everyone during this time of mourning while still navigating my own version of that. And so it's just been one of those seasons where I feel like I am stretched so thin, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I just keep telling myself, like, girl, keep going, keep going. But my body last week was like, bitch, I'm tired. Sit down somewhere. So underneath all of that personal stuff, there's just like this collective unease that is hard to ignore because the political climate right now, it feels dark and it feels very volatile. And whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of us are quietly holding space for some really hard questions. Like, what happens if things keep unraveling? What happens if we actually have to pick up and leave this place that we only know as home? And as Americans, most of us never imagined we'd have to ask ourselves if we might one day be the ones seeking asylum somewhere else. So to be Black in this country right now, we are at an impasse. Do we hunker down and fight for what our ancestors fought for, the soil that they bled for, the progress that they clawed toward? Or do we start fresh somewhere else? Somewhere that lets us breathe without having to always justify our existence. And those are very real questions that a lot of us are quietly having with our families, our closest friends. And I don't think it's all just about fear. I think it's about awareness and choice. It's about realizing that survival has always been our superpower, but peace seems to always be this far-reaching goal. And it's heavy. So when I picked up the Jackal, all of that was kind of already sitting heavy on my spirit. The anxiety, the uncertainty, the exhaustion. And I think that may be why this story resonated so deeply with me, because it's not just about horror in the traditional sense. It's about the terror of existing in a place that demands your silence for safety. So let's talk about that. Let's go ahead and get into books and bottoms up. Whew. So I came to this book after a group chat with a few of my childhood friends. Now, one of them was heading back to our small West Texas hometown for her class reunion. And before she left, she dropped the story of Tamla Horsford in the chat. And I had heard about the story before. It had been on my mind when it happened a few years back. But if you do not know that name, pause this episode later and look her up. Tamla was a mother who attended an overnight football moms party in Georgia. And it was a sleepover with 7 other adults. And by morning, she was gone. Her body was found face down in the backyard. She was bruised. She had deep cuts and contusions, and her neck was broken. And somehow, the official report came back saying that she had simply fell from a deck. But the part that chills you is that none of the other guests happened to hear a thing. And Tamla was the only Black person there. And her death was ruled accidental. But if you listen to that 911 call that came from that house, it was eerily calm. And there were voices in the background laughing while someone reported her body. We discussed that before my friend's trip because her mostly white classmates were planning a reunion sleepover. And the group chat consensus was an immediate, hell no, you ain't going. You're not attending. And keep your motherfucking location on while we're at it, right? So we laughed, but that instinct is not paranoia. It is survival. And that deep generational knowing that even in 2025, your safety still depends on how comfortable white people feel around you. And that's the horror that the Jackal captures so well. It's not about monsters in the woods. It's about being the only one in the room, the only black woman in a space that smiles at you but never truly sees you. Now, if you've ever grown up being the only one, or you are in spaces where you are the only one, you learn to read a room before you ever walk into it. And you learn how to soften your voice, adjust your tone, hide your hair, and make yourself small enough to fit inside other people's comfort zones. And you learn to erase yourself before anyone ever asks you to. And after a while, that invisibility starts to feel like safety. But here's the problem. When you internalize that for long enough, you start mistaking assimilation for achievement. You start believing that proximity to whiteness is protection. And before you know it, we end up competing with one another instead of connecting, feeling like we have to fight for that one spot at the table instead of coming together to figure out how to build more seats. Hell, create your own goddamn table. So that mindset shows up across the diaspora too, right? Because so many immigrants come to America chasing opportunity, and the system will quickly teach them that being the model immigrant means distancing themselves from the African American experience. And then they adopt the same racist ideologies used against us, thinking that that will make them safe, or that will make them different, or put them above the fray. But racism is patient. It will eventually come knocking on your door too. And when it does, you will realize that proximity never equals protection. It just delays the impact. So here's where it hits home for me as a mother and as a part of this so-called pursuit of Black excellence, that in our effort to give our children better opportunities, we've placed them in the same unsafe spaces that trained us to shrink. Like, we send them to the good schools and we move to these nice neighborhoods thinking that we are breaking cycles, when sometimes we are just leading lambs to slaughter, handing them over to systems that will condition them to accept abuse, accept microaggressions, and accept isolation. And then we will call that success. So they learn early that to be accepted, they have to smile through disrespect, to carry the weight of representation, and to pretend that being tolerated is the same as being valued. And that is the generational loop that the Jackal exposes. It's how the desire to belong can cost you your sense of self. The main character's name is Liz Roche. Her mother is a Haitian immigrant who is a successful doctor. And she goes home as an adult believing that she has escaped the ghosts of her past, only to learn that the ghosts were never supernatural. They were systemic. The silence, the assimilation, the pretending. And what haunts her isn't just the town. It's the version of herself that she buried to survive there. So for me, that is the real horror. Not the creature in the dark that's lurking, but the slow disappearance that happens when you start believing that your safety requires your silence. And that's the mirror that the author Erin E. Adams holds up in The Jackal. And the scariest thing about this reflection is how familiar that can feel. Like, you know, after sitting with all of this, the fear, the fatigue, the constant pressure to keep shit together, I realized that The Jackal is not just a horror story. It is a reminder A reminder that the real monsters we face are the ones that we are taught to ignore. The ones that are hiding in plain sight, and it's in our workplaces, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, and even in the quiet moments when we start doubting our own worth. We have been conditioned to believe that silence keeps us safe. That if we play along, if we stay polite, if we stay quiet, we will be protected. But look around. The silence is what's keeping us bound. And as heavy as things feel right now, politically, spiritually, emotionally, this is not the time to shrink. This is the time that we need to stand. Because in a moment where silence can feel like safety, it's actually the time that we need to use our voices the most. Because speaking up is not just about resistance. It's also about remembrance. It's how we honor the people that came before us. It's how we honor the women that never made it home. It's how we protect the next generation from repeating that same cycle of quiet suffering. And it's how we reclaim our space loudly, unapologetically, and together. So maybe that's the real courage, not pretending that we're fearless, because it's scary and we can be afraid, but it's speaking even when our voices shake with fear. Because our silence will not save us, but our stories might. So with that, we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to take a sip and remember that peace does not always come quietly. Sometimes peace is the sound of you refusing to disappear. All right, real quick, before we close this chapter, let's rate the Jackal. I'm giving it 4 cheers for the writing and the story, and 3 shots for scary. Because for me, the real horror wasn't in the creature or the chaos. It was in Liz realizing just how disconnected she become from her own community. The moment when you realize that assimilation has a cost, and sometimes that cost is belonging. And honestly, the reason this book hit so hard is because as Black women, we already know what it means to live unprotected. We already know that the boogeyman is real, and pretending that he does not exist has never been what keeps us safe. Awareness does, our voice does, and community does. So I give it 4 cheers for the story and 3 shots for the scary, because the truth is we've been living with the real monsters all along. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, guys, it is time to pour your heart out. This is where we take a listener letter, a viral post, or a real story from the internet and unpack it through the lens of boundaries, self-awareness, and again, a little common damn sense. So this week's letter came from Reddit, and it honestly fits right into this episode's theme of invisibility, assimilation, and how silence can keep us complicit. So the story reads, am I the asshole for ruining my sister-in-law's honeymoon by exposing her racism? The original poster is a female who's 27. Sister-in-law, who's a female who's 30, got married last weekend. She's my long-term boyfriend, who's a male that's 32, sister. They are white, and I am Middle Eastern, and a dark one with raven black hair. She was looking for a photographer that didn't bankrupt her, so I suggested a friend of mine who's new in business and charged less than half because these things cost over 5,000 euros these days. She was excited, and I set a group chat with her and my photographer friend. We talked a little, and later they met and started messaging directly to each other. The wedding was amazing, and everything went smoothly. I was one of the guests and she seemed happy. The next day they went off to their honeymoon. I don't know if it was by mistake, but instead of texting the photographer directly like she's done for the past few months, she texted him in our old iMessage chat. She thanked him but had a favor to ask him and wondered whether he could retouch and balance some of the flowers in the archway, but also if he could take me off some photos because I'm too dark and ruin the color palette. Not all pictures, just the ones that she's in. And I texted back, "Are you kidding me?" She did not answer. I took a screenshot and posted it on my Insta story, tagging her in it. She called my boyfriend crying her eyes out, calling me an asshole for embarrassing her and ruining her honeymoon. My boyfriend thought it was a blow. I was blinded with rage when I did it, but even now that I'm calm, I still don't feel like I was an asshole. But people have been contacting her, apparently asking if she really wrote this. She's so beautiful and successful, so please don't blame it on jealousy or that she's scared of being outshined. My sister-in-law is still on her honeymoon, so I have not talked to her yet, but she's bombarding my boyfriend demanding that I apologize and make a new Insta story with my apology. More people got involved, including my boyfriend's mother that thought I was way out of line for ruining her daughter's wedding. I have also gotten contacted by my sister-in-law's friends. Some of them told me stories about what she's been talking about me behind my back. So yeah, she got what she deserved. The amount of her friends that were not surprised at all with her text made it clear for me that I was not wrong. My sister-in-law is self-employed with some foreign customers, and that's why she's taking it so hard, because she's scared that it will affect her career. I don't feel like I need to save her career should something bad happen to it. My photographer friend did what he was told, and that's the only right way, in my opinion, being professional and not confusing work with his own values. He asked me if I wanted him to say something, and I said no. I also asked him not to tell me what they're texting since she is his client, so he should not break confidentiality. He is just starting his career, and he will meet worse brides. She was at least nice to him throughout their interactions. Now, to my boyfriend. As I said, he thought this whole thing was uncomfortable. I told him if he wanted to be with me, he needed to discuss uncomfortable topics. He opened up, and it was actually deeper than this. This has happened before. His uncle is very rich, and for his 60th birthday, he had a very big party. As a thank you, we received thank you cards with our pictures on it professionally taken. I remember this picture because his uncle had a red carpet moment when guests were photographed upon their arrival. Later, we went to my boyfriend's mother's to see the rest of the photos, and I was not in any of them. I thought it was funny how I literally evaded being caught on camera. I never mentioned this or even reflected on it. And while my boyfriend and his family were looking at the pictures and discussing the evening, it was just so normal, and no one mentioned something out of the ordinary. Today, he told me that I was photoshopped off the pictures. Everyone in his family knew but me. At the time, they just thought the uncle could choose whoever he wanted to have in his pictures, and they moved on. My response was, "But you kept it from me?" He said, "Yes." "So you must have thought it was hurtful." I did. I asked my family not to tell you. And we continued going to that uncle, celebrating some Christmases, Easters, and vacations with him. Silence. You didn't feel offended on my behalf? Silence. And now you think it's okay that your sister is doing the same? I didn't think of it that way. I know my sister. She's not a racist. If it wasn't racist, why is she feeling embarrassed now? Silence. You think what she did was all right? Of course not. Will you just stand and watch when this happens to our children? Of course not. I know my boyfriend very well. He's very kind, and I never felt he was racist in any way. I know he's not stupid and is aware of these things, which makes it worse because it means he just doesn't care enough. I asked him why he didn't care enough, and he said he was so sorry, but he knows me to be a strong girl that never let these petty things affect her. He's right. I normally ignore 99% of the racism and microaggressions I face in life and even laugh at the ignorance. We even discussed this before. But does being strong mean that people are entitled to try to hurt me? Because I usually don't let them. Does it mean I wouldn't appreciate to feel the support of my boyfriend having my back? Don't strong women deserve being supported by their loved ones and feeling safe and loved? He couldn't answer this. I told him that I never want his sister in my life again, or his uncle, and probably not his mother either if she still wants me to apologize. I don't want to surround myself with people like them, and especially when I have children. And I asked him if he's willing to live like that. I asked him not to answer me now and to think about it. It kind of felt like an ultimatum, and that's bad, but I didn't know how to handle the situation any better. I never thought of myself as someone who's petty or a person that makes ultimatums. This experience taught me that I am both. Apparently, she got a not the asshole verdict. Here is the boyfriend's final comment. This is the rightfully very much hated boyfriend speaking. I have read both posts and all your comments on the update. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of support my girlfriend has received. Overwhelmed and ashamed that total strangers on the internet have shown my girlfriend more support and love than I ever have. The person who's supposed to be the closest to her, I have failed to support my girlfriend and be her rock with my only excuse is that I never did it out of malice. I thought I was protecting her from being hurt. I was wrong and I'm sorry about that. But if there's any consolation, I did it out of love for her. There's no excuse for my passivity. There's only an explanation, and it's thus. Because of my privilege, I made the wrong assessment of the incidents and deemed them, albeit hurtful, not really serious or harmful. I deemed them to be pathetic, ridiculous, and petty. I was wrong, and I will not pretend that I need to be educated on racial inequality because I should have known all of these things already. I can only promise that I will have her back and be more active and alert moving forward. I choose her any day of the week, and I will have a talk with my family and make them apologize to her. And it's her decision to forgive them or not, but I choose her. It was never really a choice to begin with. She's my future wife and the mother of my future children. I have known this for years. I'm so sorry. Let me sip on some scissor or some shit because this listen, the horror here isn't just racism. It's the way that people will twist themselves into knots to protect the racist while punishing the person who refuses to stay quiet about it. That woman didn't ruin her sister-in-law's honeymoon. And let me say sister-in-law in air quotes because, girl, y'all ain't married. She just ruined the illusion that this family was decent. And her silence was never the issue, but their fucking behavior was. It's deplorable. But here's the part that really stood out to me is that her boyfriend knew. He knew about the old photos. He knew that his family erased her before. And he stayed silent about it. Now, I understand that people freeze up in uncomfortable moments, but when someone you love is being disrespected on that level, and you don't see anything wrong with it, and you can sweep it under the rug, and you don't say a goddamn thing, that is not protection. That is complicity. And this right here, this is where we have to ask the hard motherfucking questions. Is this a deal breaker? Because it would be a hell yes, it's a fucking deal breaker for me. It would definitely be a deal breaker for me. Because pardoning that kind of silence, that level of implicitness is dangerous. Especially when you're talking about building a life with somebody. I mean, you're talking about bringing kids into this situation. I'm not even gonna get into the part where she's been with this motherfucker for years. Years, it said. Long term. Like, why are we still, why are we talking about marriage? Girl, get out. Run. Anyways, I need to know what a person will do when nobody is watching. Because how you act behind closed doors says more about your character than anything you could say to me in the light. And the fact that he brushed this off before, shows me that he's already told his family without words that he is okay with them disrespecting her as long as she doesn't find out about it. So here's the truth. If they don't ride for you when you're not in the room, then it don't count when they say that they have your back in public. I'm going to say that again. If he won't ride for you when you are not in the room, then it does not count when he says he's got your back in public. That is not partnership. That is performance. And at this stage of the game, you don't have to audition for love. Fuck him. So no. Hell no. You were not the asshole. You were the accountability check that everyone tried to fucking avoid. And sometimes holding that mirror up is the only way to fuck around and find out who's really standing beside you and who is just fucking standing there. If this story hit home, or if you got your own am I the asshole moment that you want us to unpack, head over to the vault at bounty&bliss.com and fill out the Pour Your Heart Out form. And you can also submit your book recommendations for future episodes, whether it's a boundary, a lesson, or just some shit you need to get off your chest. We can unpack it right here together. Because healing is not just about moving on. It's about speaking up too, standing firm and protecting your peace. All right, y'all. I feel like this episode is short. We're going to find out. All right, y'all. It is time for Welcome to the Woosah. Woosah. Let us take a moment to come back home to ourselves. Now, we have covered a lot tonight. Heavy truths, hard emotions, deep reflections. And before we close, I want you to release what does not belong to you. This is our reset moment. So wherever you are right now, if you're sitting, if you're standing, or if you are laying down, I want you to take the time to check in with your body. So that means rolling your neck to relax, rolling your shoulders, unclenching your jaw, drop your shoulders, loosen your stomach, uncurl your toes. Let your hands rest open. So let go of those fists. No tension, just release. Unclench your jaw again. Take your tongue off the roof of your mouth and relax. And now, let's take a slow, deep breath in through your nose. Let's breathe in for 6. Hold it for 4. And let it out through your mouth. Let's do it again. Inhale peace. Hold it. And exhale anything heavy that tried to attach itself to you this week. Keep breathing in deeply, holding it at the top and releasing it slowly. And feel your body soften. Feel your heartbeat slow down. Notice where you feel grounded. Is it your feet, your seat, your spine? And remind yourself that this is safety. This is you. And as we close, I want you to set an intention for the week ahead. Maybe it is, I will not shrink myself to make others feel comfortable. Maybe it is, I deserve to be seen in full color. Or maybe it's just, I'm still here, and that's enough. Whatever your truth is, breathe it in, let it fill your chest, and let it become your anchor. And when you're ready, come back gently. You are safe, you are seen, and you are still standing. That wraps up this week's episode of Booze, Books, and Boundaries. We went kind of deep tonight, and if you made it to the end, I'm proud of you for holding space with me. let's do a quick recap. We kicked off things in Straight No Chaser with my spooky season cocktail and renamed Bad Medicine, which, if you heard my reaction, definitely lived up to his name. Just say it started off as the vanishing point, but it ended up giving on full-on Robitussin energy. But you know what? We kept it real. We just roll with it because sometimes healing is bitter before it's better. And honestly, that ended up being the perfect metaphor for this episode. Then in Liquid Courage, I got honest about the anxiety, grief, and uncertainty I've been moving through, and how in this political climate, many of us are quietly asking what it means to stay, to fight, or to start over. And then in Books and Bottoms Up, we unpacked Erin E. Adams' The Jackal, and how horror hits different when it mirrors the truth of being the only one in spaces that were never built for your safety. Then we hit Pour Your Heart Out, breaking down this wild ass Reddit letter about sister-in-law's racism and how silence from a partner can be just as dangerous as the act itself. And I said what I said. If they won't ride for you when you are not in the room, it doesn't count. Finally, we ended it with Welcome to the Woosah, grounding ourselves in breath, softness, and intention, reminding each other that peace is not quiet, it is chosen. Now, if this episode poured into you, I would love your support. Join our YouTube membership community for exclusive midweek resets, bonus content, and behind-the-scenes conversations that don't make it into the public episodes. You can also show love through superfan donations right here on YouTube. And every bit helps us create the kind of conversations that matter and allows me to keep creating. So don't forget to grab your Reset and Radiate journal. Don't forget to grab your Reset Radiate journal and Color Me Empowered coloring books. Both are designed to help you stay grounded, creative, and intentional in every season. They are both available now at Bounty&Bliss.com. While you're there, stop by the vault and submit your book recommendations or your own Pour Your Heart Out stories. You might just hear them on a future episode. Thank y'all for tuning in, for showing up, and for continuing to do this work with me. One conversation, one boundary, one drink, and one breath at a time. Until next time, protect your peace, drink your water, and mind your business. I'll catch you next week right here on Booze, Books, and Boundaries. Love y'all. Have a blessed day. Bye.